Welcome back, moviegoers, to another edition, an incredibly special edition of Going to the Movies. We are standing in Scotland right now. We're also going to be going to Ireland for some incredible, epic locations from the mid-90s classic Braveheart, starring and directed by Mel Gibson. It's not historically accurate, but who cares? Look at this place. First things first, if you're new here, I'm Ryan, my wife is Virginia, and we make pop culture travel videos at the filming locations of ours and hopefully your favorite movies. If that's something you're interested in, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like and share the video, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more content. With that out of the way, let's check out some of the spots in Glen Nevis. Glen Nevis is just below the town of Fort William, Scotland, and it's the valley below Ben Nevis, which is the highest mountain in all of the United Kingdom. It also happens to be where the filmmakers for Braveheart decided to shoot William Wallace's childhood village of Lanark. They spent about 3 weeks filming here, and it ends up being the setting for about the whole first hour of the movie. It's such a beast of a location, and figuring out where everything is took us several days of trudging around through the mud and the rain, so I want to show you the matchups in chronological order of the movie, and then I'm going to map everything for you so you don't have to do what we did and let you know the best way to tackle this area. So when you come out to the village of Lanark, where he lived as a kid, there's these two mounds you got to look out for. And I stopped at the wrong two mounds. So we're over here walking through some somewhat marshy area with soggy feet. So in the scene where we first meet young William Wallace, he wants to go fight with his father and brother, but they catch him and they say, no, you're not coming with us. You're way too young. These trees were way smaller back then. You could see the darker cluster of trees in the background when that shot was taken. Also, there was a bigger tree behind this one. It's still there, and it looks exactly the same, but the one in front, it was also there. It was just much smaller back then as well. So that's that shot, and they continue this way along this trail you see. And we see this shot where young William Wallace is trying to catch up with them. He's down on that lower part while they're up here. And we can match this up and confirm it by this tree cluster here. All right, pardon the water drops as they get on the lens, guys. So right here is about where they were pretending to hide from the English. Now this is the view down the hill where we see them throwing the rocks. I was really wanting to find this scene. I got some help from some friends. I really appreciate it from Justin and Nils. Nils is a guy who made a Braveheart locations video back in 2014 and did all the Scotland locations, and it was incredible. But not every location was listed exact where it was. And I was able to get in contact with him through Justin, who is another guy who's been helping me out. Well, yeah, right up here's the spot, baby. Throwing the rocks. Now I gotta get out of here because my camera's getting rained on. So here's an incredible shot down the valley as we're standing about in his backyard, or front yard, I guess. He comes out as he's wondering where they are one night. And of course, it's because they have been killed in battle. And it's a very sad shot. You see him there alone in the middle of this wide landscape. So this is the burial site when William Wallace's father and brother's bodies are returned. They have the funeral right here and they bury them along this slope. And then for the last matchup with young William, we see him leaving Lanark with his uncle, played by Brian Cox. In the movie, this shot dissolves to Prince Edward's wedding, and we are going to go there, but let's go ahead and knock out the rest of Lanark first. When the older William Wallace returns, now Mel Gibson, we get this vantage point of the cottage. He rides his horse up this direction. You see the mountain range there, that one tree that was visible. Actually, all these trees were visible. That's the easiest one to identify, but he comes back because he wants to find the woman who gave him the thistle when he was a kid at his dad and brother's funeral. Right here is where the wedding scene was held. You can see the hills up there where the fort was built. This is the scene where prima nocta is used, which, by the way, was not historically accurate. They don't even know if that was used anywhere at any time. Maybe France a long time ago, but that is unconfirmed. This is also where William finds the grown-up Murren, the girl from the funeral, now played by Catherine McCormick. Here's what the child actors who played William and Murren actually look like now. The scene also gives you a good view of the bridge they built across the river. I really wish that would have been there for us to use. A little later, William takes Murren for a ride on his horse. The mountains make it really easy to match the direction of the camera, but sometimes getting the correct distance is a little tougher to figure out. I think I was just being lazy on this one though. We now move across the river to the village and fort area. At this point, I had switched over to the waterproof GoPro because my camera hadn't had it with all the rain. Over the course of a few days, I kept searching for this rock over and over, and I finally found it on the same morning we were leaving Scotland. Murren's cottage would have been just past it. So I was walking along this bridge up here and I just stumbled upon this location. I had a screenshot because I really wanted to find it, but I didn't know exactly where it was. And over there is where Mel Gibson and Catherine McCormick consummate their relationship after their secret marriage. Look at that sharp rock on the left side. The one below it with the triangle in the corner. That is amazing. I don't know if it's matched up perfectly. You can't really get a good angle. I mean, the water's pretty deep. It just rained pretty heavily, but beautiful down here. Just a couple more things to show you here. This area with the distinct looking tree is the grove. It's where William tells Murren to meet up with him after their big scuffle with the guards. And here is a matchup of the fort. Just below is where Murren is tied to the post and then killed, which ends up setting William off on his path of vengeance. Now let's take a quick look and map out all the spots so you don't get lost and confused if you ever come out here yourself, because it's a big area. If you search Braveheart Village in Fort William on Google, it's actually marked on Google Maps, and it's a good jumping off point for nailing down everything else. That marker is going to take you right to the two mounds that I mentioned earlier, complete with its own car park. The fort was built on one of the mounds, and you'll have to hunt around because it's hard to mark the exact spot, but William Wallace's rock is just there as well. Just across the river from the mounds is the wedding scene area, the funeral scene for William Wallace's brother and father, and Wallace's cottage. Now, getting over here is a little tricky. You can cross the river like we did, but it's not the easiest method. It's a little bit wider than you might be imagining, and you're going to be walking across a lot of slippery rocks, and the flow of the river can be stronger depending on the amount of rainfall. The other option is driving back up north to the Glen Nevis Youth Hostel. They got a bridge going right across the river, and then it's just about a mile hike to get to the Wallace Cottage location. So this marker isn't an exact matchup, but I wanted to mark it. It's the darker group of trees. It's a good way to find things, so I wanted to show you where that was. We also thought it was a good rest stop too. While I was exploring, Virginia got a little tired and she hung out inside of there for a little while. We later found out it's actually an ancient burial ground, so now we're cursed for eternity. Geographically speaking, you'd probably want to hit the grove next. That's the funny looking tree, and to get here you want to put Glen Nevis Estate into Google Maps. There's a little spot you can park here and then walk down to this little bend in the river. The tree is actually on a small river island, so you will have to cross some water to get this match up. It's not super wide though. And for the last group of spots, you want to head to what's called Paddy's Bridge. There's a car park here as well, and that waterfall scene with William and Murren is right below the bridge. Just a note, you're going to have to climb down some rocks to get that matchup. Climb back up, cross the bridge, and follow the trail to the left, and you'll eventually get to the spot where Hamish and William are practicing throwing the rocks when they were kids. It's a really short walk, but if you're having trouble pinpointing it, a couple people have those 360 images placed there in that exact spot, so you can drop the little yellow guy if you really want to make sure of where it is before you go. Okay, how about that for a filming location? That is a lot of work to get all those spots and matchups, but I think totally worth it. Next up is Prince Edward's wedding. Now we're on the grounds of Dunsoghly Castle, and this is kind of an interesting experience, I have to say. We are the only ones here because we are in the off season of when this castle does tours. But I emailed the 21st Baron of Dunsoghly Castle. It's been in his family since the 1400s. I just asked him if we could come out and see the church, and he said, yeah, we'll leave the gate unlocked for you. Just give us the date and time. And so this is the church where Prince Edward was married. Man, look at this incredible cemetery. Virginia, she loves to visit cemeteries. This is the oldest cemetery we have ever visited. Pretty easy to make that determination considering that many of these people died long before America existed. Wow. All right, guys, we made it inside, and I don't know if I forgot to tell you this, but this is the Church of St. Nicholas, and it is so cool. I have to say, even though the scene is so short, it's one of the coolest locations that we're going to visit today. Definitely as far as buildings go. There is no roof on this place. I mean, you can see the windows are gone, but everything, the shell is still here, and you can see they did a lot of set dressing, and I'm going to show you what we can match up. There's a screenshot that I pulled that shows all of the spectators and everything, and it's behind these stone things here on the side. You see the top of this, and there are also a few stones here that you can match up. So I looked at this one here with these, and then the big block here. And I kept going down and they all matched and continued to match. So I was able to figure out that that shot was taken from about right here. Prince Edward and the princess were standing here as they were getting married. You can see the plaque, or that marble thing in the wall, the square in the background. This one might be newer. If you walk up to it, it does look like newer marble. Here's one more side-by-side to look at. Still very different until you look closely. The window's angled downward, which is what you can see in the distance in the movie shot. But I think the most interesting thing here is whatever that is in the wall, maybe a baptismal font sat in there or something, I'm not sure, but if you look at the decorative part at the top, you can see the same piece in the corner, and it looks like part of it may have fallen off at some point. The two laid to rest here in the tomb weren't in the Plunkett family. One was a Plunkett knight, and the other was his wife. They were buried here in the 1400s. The church built in the mid-1400s by Sir Christopher Plunkett. So the church is back over there in the woods. We are heading back to where we parked, which is right in front of the castle. Pretty incredible experience we just had. Just walking around on some castle grounds, just us. And man, is it incredible. Not in the movie, but I thought you'd appreciate seeing this. You guys know we love running into some animals when we're out location hunting, but they don't always love finding us. So guys, the castle way off in the distance over my shoulder was Robert the Bruce's castle. It was Edinburgh Castle in Braveheart, but actually we're in Ireland, just like many of the other locations. And it is called Dunsoghly Castle. It was built in the mid-1400s, and it's the only castle in Ireland that still has its original wooden roof. I think it's very recognizable from the movie, the way the corners of the building are, but unfortunately it is close to the public, so we can't get up close to see it. There was a lot of set dressing in the movie, but to me, that's the one that looks closest as far as the set dressed up old castles and ruins and things they used for Braveheart. I'm gonna see if we can get some drone footage. We probably can't because we're really close to an airport, but I'll get whatever vantage points I can. Let's go and do that. So here is the drone taking off, and here it is coming right back down. All right, so as I thought might be the case, This is a restricted zone for droning, so I couldn't go and fly around it. This is the best vantage point I could find, which kind of sucks. Whoever owns this castle, man, share it with the rest of the world. That thing is amazing. As it turns out, it's actually the citizens of Ireland who own Dunsoghly Castle. It's been a national monument since 1914, but it's surrounded by private farmland and it's been inaccessible since 1995. Doesn't that year sound familiar? I was doing some digging and found a Facebook page dedicated to the castle. The page is run by Eddie Jordan, author of If a Tower House Could Talk. And according to this post from 2020, to visit the castle, you'd have to stop at the nearby Newtown cottages, go to cottage number 4, and ask Mrs. Walker for the key. Then you had the castle completely to yourself to explore, but all that changed after Braveheart filmed there. You could no longer get the key from Mrs. Walker, and there was no explanation as to why. Eddie assumes it's a safety issue, but is working with the government to try and get the place back open to the public. That page also reshared some photos of the set of Braveheart being built. As for the drone shots, I'm not sure how, but a guy named Paul Sullivan was able to fly around the castle about 5 years ago. He got some really great aerial shots of the turrets around the building. You can see the wooden roof. If you want to see that full video, the link's in the description below, along with a link to Eddie Jordan's book, but don't click those yet, because we still got a bunch of spots to hit. Right behind me is what is left of Bective Abbey, which was founded in the 1100s, but everything you see here is from the 13th through the 15th centuries. This is all that remains. And this is where they filmed the scene where the princess walks down the hallway with her maid, having the discussion about William Wallace. And it's supposedly where he was kept in the dungeon for those scenes. So I'm gonna see if I can find that. When King Henry VIII got rid of all the monasteries in the mid-1500s, this became a home and it eventually fell into ruin. It was purchased by Ireland's Office of Public Works in 2012. It's free and it's open to the public. You can just go right up to this. It's pretty amazing. There are 2 sides with these columns. And to figure out which one is the correct one, it's the one with no covering over it, because you see these rocks here on the left side. This is the one I used to match up these 2 rocks with the triangular one on the top. That is shown in the screenshot. So that means she was coming up this way, talking to her maid. I was actually wrong there. I was using a still image to match the shot instead of the clip and forgot they do actually come around the corner. So you can do a matchup for both of the hallways, not just that one. And I did just happen to get this angle, which is close to matching the shot. I'm up a little bit too far, but this is the second hallway. And we were able to confirm that the dungeon scene was filmed here. So Mel Gibson was chained up by the neck in here, and you can tell because this is the only dark room in here with the column that matches up exactly, and the windows match up as well. The bars don't, but I don't think those are period bars. But let me brighten this up so you can see it. See the column? You can see that just as she walks in to see him, which means Mel Gibson was chained up to the wall just right over there. My camera's a little bit too big. Maybe I'll stick my phone in there, see if I can give you a better angle. These iron doors are padlocked shut. That's a little better. With this shot from my phone, you can see exactly where William Wallace was chained up. There's another column kind of thing in the wall, and he was right in the center of that, as you can see in this shot. And here's an image looking down in there through one of the windows. Next up, we're heading back to Scotland. All right, it's time for a classic going to the movies quick stop. This one is perhaps the most epic quick stop we've ever done. Right around here is where they crossed before they went to the English Stockade, which is actually over in Ireland, so we're gonna go hit that spot. But I wanted to show you this first. Now, I'm not standing exactly where the camera was. You see these 2 mountains here on the right side? There was another one coming down here that I'm standing right next to. You also notice that these smaller ones don't match up here, but that is the one, the big one. So this is about the spot.
by one of the biggest strokes of luck in going to the movie's history. We drove up to the Kippier estate, which used to be a privately owned estate. A count lived here, but he, I think, died recently. And as we drove up, we noticed it was a construction site. They're now turning it into a wedding venue. So we drove up, sign says, don't come in here if you're unauthorized. So I turned around, but a worker drove up just as I was driving out, stopped and asked what we were doing, and I told him. And he kind of laughed, and then he reluctantly said, follow me, I'll show you where the spot is. So after running a really long way from those beautiful mountains in Scotland, all the way to these beautiful mountains here in Wicklow County, Ireland, they come up this way. Look at the mountain range, kind of hard to see through the clouds, but look at these two bumps here, and then it goes up that way. Matches exactly. You see the hill where they came up, and then the tree line. So this is facing the direction where the gate was, where they come in from, as they were dressed as the English. When they open the gates, you can see a little tree. It's not there anymore. If you look up on this hill right here, that little tree line, and the two by themselves to the right are still there. I couldn't get the right vantage point with the way the mountains were over top of each other until I came up here. So I think it was up here, but I guess it's possible that it was down there as well. Though there are trees that you see in the background when he says burn it. So I suppose it doesn't make a huge difference whether it was on this side of the creek or that side of the creek, as far as matching up the trees and comparing where they were with respect to the stockade as it went up in flames. You don't really see much of the trees in that scene there behind the huge flames, but definitely in this direction.
And one more thing, I found this while I was editing. There's another scene about 2 hours and 20 minutes in that shows Wallace and a couple others burning soldiers alive in a cottage. That was also filmed here. So I guess they were trying to get the most out of their burning permit. But in this shot where they're pushing the cart, you can see those same two trees that I mentioned, plus this line of trees. So if you were looking up the hill at where the stockade was, you'd be looking northeast. To face where the cottage was, you'd have to look northwest, but I think it was a little bit farther down the hill.
Alright guys, so I'm standing in Curragh Plains. I'm in the middle of a field surrounded by sheep. This is where they filmed the Battle of Stirling, which was in real life the Battle of Stirling Bridge. They did not build a bridge for the movie. It was a hugely pivotal part of that battle, but yeah, they didn't need that. They just needed a big field here in Ireland. And this is where the army practices, the Irish army, and they were used as extras in this scene. They also use this as a shooting range, but fortunately they're not shooting right now. So I would say if you come out here, make sure to check that there are no red flags flying. Now look up here, this is the tree line that you see, and it's known locally as Braveheart Hill. The tree's pretty recognizable, I would say. So somewhere down around about where we are is where the freedom speech happened and the English were up there. Let's see what matchups we can do. If you haven't seen Braveheart in a while, the Battle of Stirling is the one where they lift their kilts up. It's also the one where we get the famous Braveheart speech, probably the most famous scene in the movie. Freedom. That's what I'm talking about. So up on this bank is about where he gave the freedom speech to all the Scots. There's a shot when they come forward for negotiations, where you see this hill right here and that one. Now the trees are all different and the growth on the hill is completely different, but that still matches up. And then when we turn around, I think I finally got the right perspective. Let me go up that bank a little bit to match that shot up. Just imagine Mel Gibson riding up and down this bank on a horse. Must have been pretty cool to watch if you were an extra. The reason so much of Braveheart was shot in Ireland instead of Scotland is because of the tax breaks that the film industry has here. So it was a lot cheaper, and they were also able to save money by using the Irish army as extras, especially for this particular scene where they all stood right behind me and right where I'm facing. All right, so for our next stop, the Battle of Falkirk, that was all filmed on a private farm in Ballymore Eustace here in Ireland. And I found the owner and I asked if we could see it, and she was very happy to show it to us. She walked us all around the fields. It was a really long walk, and she was so nice. And so now I'm gonna show you that footage. Do a lot of people ask you to come see this?
No, never.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you think? Did you think we were crazy when we messaged you?
Just a little.
All right, guys, we are in Ballymore Eustace, a town in Ireland, and this is the field where they shot the Battle of Falkirk. So up there on that grass patch on that hill, that's where the English were sitting. King Edward the Longshanks was there for this battle. Down here is where the Scots were, as well as the Irish. And you can recognize that tree there that shows up in the background of a few of the shots as well. Over here is the tree line that he goes behind when he falls off the horse, and we get the reveal that he has been betrayed by Robert the Bruce.
Let's first take a look at this hill on the English side.
Back in 1995 when they filmed, they had to keep the crops trimmed down, so that was part of the deal, was covering the costs of a year without being able to grow anything. So you see it's all tall now, but this was very short at the time.
Now, because of the height of the crops and the fact that it's really hard to see screenshots on a phone with the sun shining, I was just filming and droning in random directions, but there are parts of tree lines that you can compare to nearly 30 years ago. Looking at this shot of the English riding towards the camera, you'll see the two grass patches along the hill. This tree on the left is still visible. There was an opening here which has since filled in more, but the space at the top still looks the same. I'll show you that from the other side later. There's this tree which is more covered by the growth of the trees in front of it now, but it still peeks out here. And then you've got the bushes. I called it a tree line earlier. They're really bushes, but those are still situated in the same place, though this is from the drone, so it's not an exact matchup. And the bushes have changed a bit, so it's gonna look a little different. In this shot, Robert the Bruce has just given William Wallace to Stephen, and they are riding off, and the camera's facing almost in the opposite direction. You can see the shape of the trees pretty easily here in the background. So I'm looking down now. I'm up behind where the English were sitting on their horses. This open trail down to that spot is visible in the movie. So I'll show you this here on the screenshot. This is what you're looking at from the top of the hill down as they looked out over the Scots out here for the Battle of Falkirk. This body of water here right behind me is Pulafuka Lake, and I don't know if I pronounced that right, but this is the largest man-made lake in Ireland, and it's where they filmed the scene when William Wallace rides up into a tower on his horse, crushes a guy, and then they jump out of the window, him and his mechanical horse. That was all filmed here, but in all of my internet research, I could not find the exact spot because I couldn't find a production still of the tower they built, nor could I find anyone that knew the exact area. You wouldn't have been able to recognize it because it's nighttime in the movie and all you pretty much see is water. But I wanted to show it to you anyways, and I also thought it'd be nice to come out to the lake this morning. Well, you saw it in the intro, and it's finally time to break it down. The legend of William Wallace grows as he climbs this mountain, and I can say that this, without a doubt, is the coolest, most rewarding filming location that I've ever visited. It's back in the Scottish Highlands, and it's along a dangerous ridge called Lanark, which is Scottish Gaelic for notched ridge. I was determined to get up to this spot on our trip, but it was not easy. First, I had to estimate where the exact spot was, and then I used all trails to find the most direct way to get up there. All the reviews of the hike said not to do it alone and not to do it when it's wet. So at 7:30 a.m. on a cool morning with drizzling rain off and on, I started up the mountain by myself from the Lanark car park.
The first part of the climb isn't too bad. It's just a thigh workout, but then you get up to some parts where you have to scramble up rocks to keep going. I actually had a lot of fun doing this to begin with, but at a certain point it felt like it just kept going and going and going. Kind of like this video. I didn't want to stop for a breather at all. I just wanted to get to the top, but every once in a while I just had to look out across the Highlands and take in the incredible views. Once you start getting closer to the top, it is less scrambling, but it's still pretty steep and the rocks are more loose. I actually did slip and fall here in this area on the way down, but I did make it to the top. It took about an hour and a half to get all the way up there, and then I ended up spending another hour getting footage, so let's look at some of that. First off, there's a split in the path, and you can see this when Mel Gibson is running. The movie makes it look like if he continued in that direction, he'd end up at the spot where he ends his run, but that spot's actually behind him. He's running away from it. I tried to recreate the run here, but it's really hard to run and fly a drone pointing exactly where you want it. I did the best I could under the circumstances. Next, you want to head west, and again, this is opposite of what you would expect when you're watching the movie, but the thing to look out for are the vertical slits through this rock. That's a little bit of intel from Nils' video, and here is the money shot. Now you think climbing a mountain for a location is crazy. How about climbing a mountain, coming back down, then driving to another spot and hiking 3 miles to match up a shot that shows up for about 3 seconds? One more quick stop out here. We hiked 3 miles to get to this spot, and it shows up in the movie for like 10 seconds as they ride somewhere on horses. You can see the lock in the background and the mountains on either side. It's beautiful. I couldn't pass up seeing it, and I wanted to show it to you guys. I wouldn't have found it without the help of my friend Justin. I'm gonna put his Instagram in the description. I want you to go follow him because he does some amazing locations here in the UK and elsewhere, and I think he's one of the best. So please follow him, and also follow this guy Nils that did a Braveheart video in Scotland. It was amazing, and he's helped me out some too to find some of the spots. I think I've decided we're moving to Ireland, and I want this house. I'll take it. You like it?
It's like a busy room.
It's got a good view of Trim Castle, which is our next location. I believe this is the oldest structure we're going to see in the video today. It was built over the course of about 30 years in the late 1100s by Hugh de Lacy, and this is where they filmed the scenes where the Scots take over York. And they also filmed the execution of William Wallace right here. You look at this picture that I found by a photographer who was there during the set building, you can see exactly where the castle was, or the keep was, with respect to this wall. And a lot of shots were taken from across the river when it was York. So I'll show you some of those shots. And then an establishing shot of London when it was the execution area of William Wallace. You can see it's completely different, but in the same spot. So let's try to match up what we can. It's hard to tell because so much of it was set design. It makes it difficult to pinpoint. So the circular structure here is called the Barbican Gate, and that's the main thing you can still see beneath all the set design. So they built a huge gate next to it. You can see that. And then some wooden stuff along the wall. And then of course the stuff they built on top of the keep. But right here is where they sacked York. And that little arched area is where the sewer drain or the dungeon, whatever those things are, they put a gate up in there for the set. So we just found this sign that has confirmed what I believed to be correct, that everything on the inside was where William Wallace was executed, and everything on the outside was when they besieged York. So it says Braveheart employed hundreds of trim locals as extras. Outside the castle walls was transformed into the 13th century city of York, besieged by William Wallace in the movie. The keep inside the walls became the Tower of London, where Wallace was executed in 1305. Bective Abbey, which we have seen already, to the east of Trim, served as the courtyard of Longshanks Castle, also represented the dungeons in which Wallace was imprisoned. Another confirmation for the location that we found. Now, Mel Gibson was granted the Freedom of Trim in 2010. I don't know what that is, some sort of local award. But also, look at this. The movie is recalled in an annual 5K race organized by the Trim Athletic Club entitled the Braveheart Run. Had I known that existed, I probably would have scheduled my trip around it, because that sounds like a blast. So we are now going to enter the grounds of Trim Castle. And incredible castle ruins here in Trim, Ireland. So it's free to roam the grounds here, but there is a small fee you can pay to tour the inside of the keep. If we had time, we would do it. I'm sure it's amazing, and it's not too expensive. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend it blindly. But if you don't have time like I did, walking around the grounds is pretty amazing as well. I did not get the right vantage points of the execution scene, but luckily there is Google Street View on the path around the keep, and Trim Castle has a binder filled with behind the scenes photos. So let's look at a couple things. First, if you recall from the movie, they bring him through a gate into a platform with a cross-shaped table. The platform had sort of a bridge over it, and all of these elements were built by the production. So one, let's look back at the photographer's photo I showed you earlier. His website is linked below, by the way, and this was taken across the river. It shows the bridge structure over the platform. You can see it if you look really close. And we can tell from this that the crowd is facing the river. Number two, in this behind the scenes photo from the binder, you can see the platform on the left, and to the right you can see the Barbican Gate. This is facing southeast, and the keep is right out of the frame on the right. Number three, this photo, which faces away from the platform, shows you the gate that they built, and you can see the keep right behind it. We can tell this is facing southwest because the windows in the keep are different on each side, and this side is the only one that matches the photo. And finally, number four, in this shot from the movie, you can see through the gate, there's a crumbled wall way off in the distance, and that is right here. If you were to go and wanted to match up shots, there's not much to get, but there is one low angle of Wallace where the keep is visible. And there's this shot of this guy who leads the stretching horse where you can see the Barbican Gate. And with that, we move to our final location. Don't worry, it's a quick one. For our final stop, we're at Ardmore Studios just outside of Dublin. This is where they shot everything that was not on location for the movie Braveheart. Obviously, I do not have access to the studios, and there's nothing there that would have looked the same anyways, but I did want to mark it in history as their studio. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video as much as we enjoyed making it. Click right here to watch another filming locations video from us. Click right here to watch a playlist of all of our filming location videos. Make sure to like and subscribe because we got some more big ones coming. We've got some awesome ones already made, waiting for you to watch. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.